Eric Trump exposed how Washington really works. Check it out.
And so oftentimes these politicians, because they've never run a business and they've never signed a check and they have no idea what the hell they're doing.
During an appearance on the Iced Coffee Hour, Eric explained why so many politicians are disconnected from real life, then shared a personal story that showed just how deep the rot runs.
I just couldn't believe that was the status of the government, that they would do something like that.
And today, we're covering it all. So if you believe truth isn't partisan, hit the subscribe button and let's jump right into it. But by the way, this video is sponsored by Anson Belt and Buckle. More on that later.
Going from business into politics, what was the one thing that surprised you the most out of all of it?
Yeah,
I'm sure you went in with an expectation as well.
Yeah, I think the lack of competence of a lot of politicians, if you want to know the truth, right? I mean, these are mainly people who didn't have jobs. Look at Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden, had been in politics for 55 years, 56 years actually when he got out, right? I'm a 41-year-old guy. I've got gray in my beard. Think about it, right? Never signed the front of a check, never built anything. Most of his life had yes-no decisions, yes-no votes. Could you imagine if my life was a yes-no vote, right? I mean, I might need to effectuate 500 things to get to the end result. And it's all a roadmap in order to get there. And so I think it creates very binary thinking, and oftentimes some of the politicians who are, debating and voting on the most complicated, items that we have in society know nothing about and have zero real world practical skill look at like some of these minimum wage, proposals that are going up in New York, doubling, tripling minimum wage. Well, that's great other than the fact that they're just going to, automate every single service.
There are plenty of examples beyond Joe Biden, like Bernie Sanders, who has pushed, quote, Medicare for all for decades, while ignoring how big a failure Obamacare has been now, or how his home state of Vermont tried something similar and failed miserably. How about the Cheneys, the Clintons, or the John Boltons of Washington, who have always called for endless wars and regime changes, yet never faced the front lines themselves? It's quite interesting how much effect such politicians have on our lives, despite having little understanding of how the real world works, in addition to being completely shielded from the consequences themselves. Speaking of people who know what they're doing, we have a quick message from today's sponsor. Are you ready for a belt that doesn't quit? Because that's exactly where Anson Belt and Buckle comes in. It's a family-run business that's been around since 2009, based right here in North Carolina. And they're completely revolutionized the belt game. Instead of those outdated holes that never line up when you need them to, Anson uses micro-adjustable track systems with quarter-inch increments. That means your belt fits exactly how you want it every single time. And once you experience that kind of comfort, you're never going to go back. I mean, it gets better. Every buckle works with every strap. You can mix and match styles depending on what you're wearing without buying a million belts that end up collecting dust in your closet. One box, endless options. I've been wearing mine constantly, and my wife never stops complimenting me ever since. If trust matters to you, Anson checks that box too. This is a company that's still proudly family-owned and operated, has earned over 40,000 five-star reviews, and backs a belt with a lifetime guarantee on functionality. And since they're sponsoring today's video, there's an exclusive deal waiting. Click on the link in the description or scan the QR code to build a box set, and you'll get 2 bonus pieces free. That's 3 buckles and 3 straps, which gives you 9 different combinations in one box. This deal isn't available anywhere else. So click the link in the description, build your set, and support an all-American run business, along with our independent voice. Now, back to the video.
So everyone knows that politics is extremely corrupt, but what was the exact moment in your life that you realized it's way worse than you could have thought?
I'll never forget, I got a call from the FBI, and they said, we need to see you at FBI headquarters in downtown New York. There's a threat against your company. And so naturally, I rushed down there, and no one knew I was going. They specifically asked that, like, please, no one knows you're coming. And I drive into parking garage. The only people who knew I was there was Secret Service, the guy driving me down, and go up to the 8th floor into one of these, skiffs. It's kind of this, the lead-lined room where, you can't bring cell phones, you can't bring anything into it. And they go, hey, there's a cyber threat against your company. I go, okay, great. I can see every cyber threat that's coming into our company, right? If you have a half-decent IT department, you can see cyber attacks every single day, right? This is like, 101 business stuff. And I go, where's it coming from? Well, sir, we can't tell you that. Guys, is it China? No. Is it Russia? No. is Iran, and their eyes just, light up. Okay, so guys, so there's a cyber threat coming out of Iran. Least shocking thing I've heard all day. But you can't tell anybody that this is happening. This is absolutely secret. You can't tell anybody. And I go, okay, I won't tell anybody. Thanks a lot. Like, this whole thing's felt like it's a waste of time. You could have just told me, hey, there's cyber threats. Just be really careful with your servers and everything else. But they swear me to secrecy.
Now, for context, what Eric was referring to happened back in August of last year, but didn't get extensive media coverage. Microsoft was the first to publicly announce it, saying, "We've been tracking, and it increasingly points to Iran's intent to influence this year's U.S. presidential election." That effort reportedly involved Revolutionary Guard-linked groups targeting senior figures in both the Trump and Harris campaigns using phishing emails. Politico later reported emails from an anonymous account who identified themselves as Robert, who shared internal Trump campaign materials but didn't go in depth on it. Then in September, the DOJ charged 3 individuals labeled as IRGC cyber actors, accusing them of trying to influence the elections. Now, those filings closely matched earlier reporting, but the strange part wasn't the interference itself. So let's hear how Eric explained it next.
I go down to the parking garage. I get in a car, and no one, guys, knew I was there. My assistant didn't know I was there. No one, the company knew I was there. I was driving up the ramp in the FBI building in New York, and I got a call from the head of ABC News, a friend of mine. "Eric, I hear you're down at FBI headquarters." And I go, "John, what are you talking about?" He goes, "I hear you're at FBI. I'm like, "I'm not at FBI headquarters." He goes, "Yes, you are. I know you're in the building right now." I go, "John, I'm not at FBI headquarters." He's like, "Eric, listen, we've known each other for a long time. Don't lie to me." I go, "How would you know something like that?" And he goes, "Because their press office out of Washington, D.C. just called to tell me that you just left their skiff and they were briefing you on a cyber threat from Iran." And I go, "You got to be freaking kidding me." Beyond, the Secret Service agent in the front of the car, who was with me for 3 years, I had him on speakerphone at that point, was clenching his fists like he wanted to fight. I just couldn't believe that was the status of the government, that they would do something like that.
The John Eric mentioned is most likely ABC's chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl. That makes sense, given Karl has written multiple books on Trump's campaigns and included some behind-the-scenes details, which suggests familiarity with the family as well. But that's beside the point. What the story actually shows is how parts of the government operate behind closed doors. It also explains how the media ends up with so many anonymous sources stories. Certain agencies and reporters appear to work in sync, forming a quiet relationship that helps permanent Washington shape narratives and influence policy. It's also a way to get ahead of breaking news and steer public perception before facts fully surface. Eric then shared another example of how these same tactics were used against his own family. Needless to say, he didn't hold back.
And then we get into Under Siege, right? That was kind of my first, where they impeach my father twice, right? They make up dirty dossiers. The dirty dossiers were talking about golden showers. They were talking about things. All they wanted to do was have my father, divorced, lose his family, embarrassed, all paid for by Hillary Clinton, right? They made up the Russia hoax. So we had secret servers in the basement of Trump Tower communicating with the Kremlin. Give me a break. We don't have servers in the basement. You know why you don't put servers in basements? Because basements flood, right? Let's just start at the basics. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history, 112 subpoenas for doing nothing wrong. I've never got so much as a traffic ticket, right? 91 indictments toward my father, debanked by every major financial institution in the country. They came after us like we were dogs. They raided Mar-a-Lago. They raided Melania's room. They raided Barron's room. It was the government. It was the government. It was Joe Biden. It was Merrick Garland.
You think Joe Biden is literally pulling the strings, saying like, "You do this, you do that"? Because I actually don't think that he was, competent enough to.
Okay, fine. So Joe Biden, or the Autopen, or his underlings, or Merrick Garland, who is definitely capable enough of this.
It's striking how during his first term, Washington elites chased every possible lead against Trump, almost functioning like a well-oiled propaganda machine. He was the outsider, and that made him a threat to the way things usually ran. What stands out now is the contrast. Trump is far more prepared to push back and call it out in real time. Still, looking back, it's mind-blowing that something like this unfolded so openly, with so little pushback at the time. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, keep thinking.